Welcome to Airgun Academy, presented by Pyramyd Air, your online airgun resource. In this episode, we're going to talk about the artillery hold. The artillery hold is a special hold for both coiled steel spring and gas piston air guns. Guns that recoil and vibrate. I'm going to give you a quick demonstration so you know what I'm talking about. I'll come back and go over this in detail in just a moment. Because I'm about to shoot, I put on my safety glasses. That's something I always do when I'm going to shoot an air gun. Now here's a sandbag, but I'm going to rest the gun on my hand on top of the sandbag. I don't hold it tightly, I don't pull it back into my shoulder, and I just squeeze the trigger lightly. Like that. I will come back and cover that in detail, but before I do, let me show you why that works and what's going on. I'll use this HW50 spring tube. This is an air gun. It just is lacking a trigger, a barrel, and a stock. You got a mainspring and a spring guide. Not going to need them for a moment, but we are going to need the piston. This is the thing that compresses the air. This white piston seal goes forward in this tube when the gun fires. And you can see this slot right here. That's the cocking slot. Well, this piston sits just in front of that, and there's a chamber in front of the piston. We call it the compression chamber. When the piston fires, it goes forward violently, compressing air in front of it. Now that air gets squeezed and pushed through this little hole called the air transfer port. I'll bring the camera in real close so you get a good look at it. The air shoots through that air transfer port and winds up in back of the pellet, which is in the barrel, but the pellet doesn't move. So the pressure builds and builds until it gets to about 1200 psi, and then the pellet can't stay in place anymore. It takes off out of the barrel. But this big piston has already come to a stop. And that's what the artillery hold is all about. We're doing what you cannot do any other way. If you try to hold this gun tight, there's no way you can grab it the same way every time. So we're setting it up so that the gun is in the same place, and especially the muzzle is in the same place when the pellet leaves the muzzle. Now let me show you specifically how to do it. I'm going to shoot the gun again, so I'm going to put on my safety glasses because I always wear them when I shoot air guns. And I'm going to place it on the sandbag. And you're going to say, wait a minute, Tom, you're putting it on a sandbag. I shoot directly off of sandbags. Not with the artillery hold. Spring piston air guns don't like to rest directly on sandbags. There are a few that are exceptions, but for the most part, they don't like it. And you'll shoot all over the place. So you put your hand there between the bag and the gun, and you don't grasp the gun. You're resting it on the flat of your palm, and your palm is back by the trigger guard. Now that gives you a little bit of muzzle heaviness for stability, but some guns might be even more stable if you pull the gun back so that your hand is under the cocking slot. And there are a few guns, very few fortunately, that are very unstable, and you actually want to shoot the gun on the backs of your fingers like that. This gun is cocked and ready to go, so let me try a shot. You might have noticed that the gun moved. I wasn't controlling it. I want it to move as much as it can. Question always comes up at this point. Well, if this artillery hold is so good, does it also work on pneumatic guns, PCPs, CO2 guns? Yeah, it does. But why? You don't have a piston that you're fighting. This piston comes to a stop before the pellet takes off. In the pneumatics and CO2s, that pellet is moving before the gun moves. So really, the artillery hold is for a spring piston gun only. We've covered the artillery hold today, and I'd like to go over the main points in this episode. Most spring piston air guns recoil and move around, vibrate when they shoot. Don't try to restrain the guns because you can't. Let them move as freely as possible and hold the gun as lightly as you can. Holding it tightly You can't ever do it twice the same way and the pellet will go all over the place. Don't rest the spring gun directly on the sandbag. Rest it on the flat of your open palm. Some guns are so sensitive you might have to rest them on the backs of your fingers. And does it work with other guns? Yes, it does, but there's really no need to because only the spring piston causes problems when it fires. That's all for this episode, and thanks for watching.